Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today. We're going to kick off today, actually. It's unusual to start the day with a special selection. With a special selection where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to listen to. Today's comes at us from Martin. Hi, Bryan. Glad you like Wow Owls. A great reaction is always, here's something different. Tragedy. The day after. It's crust downbeat? Is that what D-beat is? From Portland, Oregon, most of the members played originally in His Hero Is Gone. Also an all-time favorite here. Enjoy. I'm looking forward to this. We don't get a lot of, kind of straightforward music. I'm kind of expecting downbeat and crust to be a bit more straightforward here. Let's dive in. Tragedy. The day after. Okay, using the intro as a pre-chorus here. I don't think so. Dude, those snare rolls are incredibly tight and fast. Oh, they have one there. Okay. So then here. Yeah. Bit heavier here, harmonically. Nice guitar slide into this to kind of pull that energy into the layering we get in this part. That guitar line is now in the center in a different... Yeah, we have different notes, but it's the same general idea. Yeah, dude, high energy track right there. Pretty straightforward too. It's very punky. A lot of the track is fast. The drums have a pretty straightforward syncopated idea throughout a majority of this. They don't really deviate from that too much, and when they do choose to do a drum fill, which sometimes is every 4 bars and sometimes it's every 8 bars, and I never quite caught the pattern of when we had more drum fills and when we had less, but it was always consistently 100% of the time a quick snare roll. That's it, no frills. A little burst of energy to get back to the energetic song that it already is. The drums are intense, everyone's playing fast, the tempo pretty high up there, and even the vocals have a lot of energy to them, despite them being growls. I find them to be driving. Growls to me typically feel a little, I kind of hate to use the word, but I think it describes the way I interpret them and how I hear them. Growls kind of come off to me as a bit flat. And this doesn't. Maybe it's because it's more of a hardcore yell than an actual growl. But it still has that deep, kind of guttural element to it. So it kind of sounds growly to me, but it feels projected. It feels like there's energy behind it, that there's electricity in the delivery, if that makes sense. I find that to be interesting, given I don't usually get that out of similar vocal deliveries. Aside from just being fast, which I really feel that captures most of this track, there is a general weight to it. Even when we look at just the chords that open the track up, when we look at the oppressive energy and all of the attacks coming at us in the verse, there is no chorus in here, is there? I thought we had a pre-chorus, but then it just went into another verse. And then what I thought was the pre-chorus took us into the outro. Anyways, very oppressive sound with lots of attacks all over the place. There is some antagonism to the chord progressions, but generally they just sound loud and angry to me. It's not really too much of using functional harmony in order to create an evocative and engaging chord progression. It's mostly about picking a couple of chords that sound angry together and then just, laying into them over and over and over. And I think that's what makes the ending interesting, because when we bring in those 3 chords that wrap the song up, there's something dreary about them. Maybe not entirely. I think if I just heard them in isolation, dreary might not be the word I use to describe them, but in contrast to that rage and anger that kicks the song off, yeah, dude, the tempo comes down. It kind of feels like we're dragging our feet a little bit more, and it just feels gloomy in a way the rest of the track doesn't. And of course, bringing the tempo down too, we kind of introduce a bit of weight, not aggressive weight, but emotional weight. Something that's pulling us down to the ground, not allowing us to move as quickly as we were. I thought this was a great way to wrap the track up, and I'm really curious to get into what all of it is trying to say on maybe a more specific level, but the concept of the day after, and maybe this is being influenced by the band name being called Tragedy, but I kind of see that the beginning of this track is a lead up to a point of no return. And after that has happened, we have the melancholic aftermath. The day after is what the final minute of this song is supposed to represent, looking around and seeing whatever is the repercussions of the chaotic anger that we saw at the beginning of the track. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that covers everything about this song. It is 3 minutes of injected adrenaline and noise and aggression and very little deviation from that. So let's dive into some lyrics and see what they're trying to say with this song. I was right about what the ending represents, but I had no idea what it was going to be in comparison to, or even what the ending would be. I knew it was a bit of, looking at the aftermath of something, but the sheer scope of this track is much larger than I anticipated. It is about the destructive nature of humanity. And the verses speak about destruction, empty shells where yesterday a hospital stood, the hospital medicating the sick with more sickness. Talks about bodies hanging, trying to run from a blinding flash. Talks about teachers teaching children how to follow orders, or at least they did in a schoolhouse that is now just rubble. Talks about graveyards of smokestacks standing where yesterday there were factories mass producing useless products, mass producing greed. We then have a bridge that says all that remains are stacks of radiated corpses, piles of excessive debris, and skeletons. What this is talking about is the aftermath of nuclear destruction. The very final stanza says, serving as a monument, all of these things left over, they serve as a monument to an era of mankind and to the error of mankind. Kind of like that change there from era to error. Kind of clever. But I do think it's interesting to look at what we would leave behind if the human race were completely annihilated tomorrow. Would it have looked like we were doing our best to achieve a brighter future? And this song says, no. Our history is one paved with control and greed and destruction. And it uses a hypothetical endpoint where this species no longer exists to serve as a mirror to reflect upon modern times and ask, is this the legacy that you want to leave behind? Now, this was written in 2002, and it seems more poignant today than it did then, which I find to be pretty sad, but also not too surprising. The more that we explore older tracks, the more that I realize that even music back to the 50s still resonates today lyrically. But I do think that this is a song that matches the energy rather well. There is disgust and shame and anger in the beginning of this track, and sadness at the end. These are my thoughts then on Tragedies the Day After. What did you think of this song? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have a different opinion or take on this? Let me know. Put any of that you want to add into the comment section below, as well as, I don't know, any other thoughts you might have about this. Above the comment section is a description box. In there is a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to. And have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.